Hi, I'm Matt from HockeyReviews.ca, and this is the best of goalie stuff in 2020, including equipment, trends, stuff like that. Before all that, if you are making any purchases to any hockey equipment and live in the United States, check out the link in the description to Pure Hockey and Pure Goalie. Clicking that link, make your purchase, gives me a kickback, so it helps support the channel so I keep doing reviews. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel, check out the link in the description to Buy Me a Coffee and Patreon. Anything that goes through there comes right back into the channel so I can keep doing long-term reviews, because I gotta buy this stuff for long-term reviews and that's really expensive, and it would be greatly appreciated. First of all, this is a very generic thing. It has no rules, because some of these things like the Optic 2s aren't a 2020 piece of gear, it's a 2019, but they basically came out at the end of the year and there's no new Brian stuff this year, so that's why they're here. As well as the 2X Pros are there, and they're, again, an old model, but they're still the best at certain things, so they're still here for that. Also, a caveat is this is only stuff I've used and stuff I can actually talk about. I know there's some other stuff out there, like the Lefebvre gear. I can't really include that in here because I haven't used it. So for an overview, here are the categories that I'm going to be going over. Best rebounds, best sliding, best blocker. Glove is a personal preference, so I won't go over that. Most improved, most disappointing, best thing of 2020, worst trend, best innovations, most improved, best value, and listening to feedback of users. If you look at the timeline, it'll show you exactly where each section is. So I'll try to go to order of like the best stuff first and then the bad awards later. I don't have a best pad because that's not how this works and it's too personal preference. I'm not going to talk about that. But we'll start off with the best rebounds. So Bauer always says their ultrasonic pads are the biggest, the Supreme line is the biggest rebounds. I found the 2X Pros, at least my 2X Pros, the rebounds on these were considerably harder than what's on the ultrasonic. The ultrasonics are still really hard and basically the second best ever. But for some reason with these, maybe it's the straighter core and the slightly stiffer core. But these, when pucks would hit the shin and hit the boot itself, pucks would come off harder and for rebounds. Again, my experience so far with the ultrasonics, they still come off hot, but not quite as hot as what was on the 2X Pros, and that gives the best rebounds to me, the 2X Pros. The one big difference between these two pads, you can kind of see here, is the actual like thickness of the shin area, and the big rebound area difference was the boot, which is also thinner on the 2X Pro, but the shin, and I found the shins off here come off harder than they do there. Where I noticed this the most, in the reverse VH, when people are kind of at the goal line or below, and they kind of try to either pass pucks in front and it hits the shin and goes out, or they try to sneak a puck in, the vapors would come off harder, and I could hear it more too than what was on the ultrasonic. So I don't know if that's actually just the core is thinner or what it is, but that's from my personal experience, and that is why the vapors are in this lineup. So we'll get rid of those. One of the most important things to me is sliding, because I'm not fast. And people make fun of me all the time for that. But regardless, sliding on pads is something that will make or break a pad to me. I really like the CCM Axis pads. If they didn't have speed skin and had something new like Quick Slide, Opti Slide, or Cortec, I would buy a pair because they work really well for me. And that would basically be like one of the perfect pads. But they don't. They have speed skin or regular Gen Pro, and they just can't compete with some of the other brands. So with that said, Vaughn gets a huge props for this. I haven't worn the V9s personally, so I can't say totally if they're the best sliding, but it's still quick slide, and the SLR2s were amazing, and hopefully this little footage of me sliding around kind of shows that. Me over sliding, I should clarify that because people will make comments on it. Quick slide hasn't changed, so it should be the same, and the way that they did the whole seal of the V9 is really close to how the SLR was, like how the thigh rise and like the whole inner edge was, so it should be really good for that. Now, some people say you can overslide and that's a problem. For me, I don't think that's a problem, because for a car analogy, if you're on a highway and need to pass someone, I'd rather have 600 horsepower and be able to control that and make the pass easy versus having 200 horsepower and having to push as hard as possible in that car to get around to make the pass. Same with pads. I'd rather have a pad that slides like crazy and I have to find out how to control the speeds for specific plays, because when you do need that fast sliding to get across the ice on like a desperation play, you'll have that speed, versus a pad like the Axis, which doesn't slide that great because of speed skin. You never have that top end that other pads do, so you kind of lose out on that. While it is easier to control everything else, I'd rather be able to do that myself and have that max performance out of it. All right, so most innovation is going to have two different things, just because I wanted to talk about how awesome this one piece of gear is. For the first thing, the most innovative thing on goalie pads is Bauer's new stability block, stability slide thing, where the actual pad itself, so there's a piece of plastic here that basically goes in and goes to the front, which makes this part not stick out at all. You can see with force, it stays totally on there. Check out the actual full video on this, which will be linked to the right and in the description. This is a very innovative product, and it really makes this block extremely stable. It also makes the pads extremely reactive. When I first put these things on right away, every single knee movement I felt instantly. So the second my knee lifted, I felt it. The second I pushed down, I felt it. Because there was zero delay ever between me pushing down this knee block and like the knee block flaring out or anything else. It just instantly reacts, and that is really impressive. Now for chest protector is honestly the Bauer Ultrasonic. The arms are ridiculous. It's one of the best and most innovative designs I've ever seen, and they're really trying something different with a chest protector. Some people have said that this is an old design from the 90s. That might be fair. I've never seen that design personally, but the fact that they brought it back and they tried to make it modern and actually use in a new modern retail chest is really impressive. My issues were all protection on this, or else I would have owned one. If I knew they had options to order customs with the beef up packages, I would have bought it. I wouldn't have had my Kineski, because I would have bought that Bauer. It's really impressive. Just the protection on the retail ones is extremely lacking, but the mobility is just unreal. Previously, Vaughn's couldn't really be matched for arm mobility. Like there's some that are kind of close, but Bauer just takes it to a whole new level, and it's really impressive. Next is most improved, and this is a tie between two different pads. One is a CCM Axis. I don't have them anymore. They were given back to my friend. So you can see that video in the card to the right or in the description. Very impressed with the Axis. They're a huge improvement over the Premier 2. Some people like the Premier 2s and say the Axis aren't better. The Axis are better. The whole sliding edge of the Axis is a huge improvement and actually makes the pad significantly better. You can see how many goalies are wearing the Lefebvre style stuff, which the Axis is really close to. I get people who like the Premier with the rounded roll to suck up pucks, but it's just the Axis is going in the right direction. It is a good move by CCM. I have a feeling the eFlex 5s will also be in the most improved section of next year if I do this video again. It's really nice to see CCM making those changes, and the Axis is a very welcome change and improvement over what was in the past. Now, next most improved is the Warrior Ritual G5 Pros. So again, these are the Pros. Mine have the Pro Stiff Thigh Rise, which I think make them a little bit better than the retail ones, but the retail ones are still amazingly improved, and Warrior deserves huge credit for actually listening. It took a long time. It took 3, 4, 5, kind of 2. That's 3 generations of pads to actually make them the way they should. So huge props to them for doing it, because this is a significantly better pad than the predecessors. A lot of people always wanted me to review Warriors in the past. I wasn't going to do it unless I got a demo set, because I knew I wouldn't like them enough. Basically, the core of the pad was just too soft. I saw too many pairs of pads with this thigh rise permanently bent in and always off the ice because of how soft that core is. That's a really important seal on the thigh rise, and knee is really important to me, specifically in my blocking style of play. So I needed that to be a specific way, and the old pad just didn't have it. This pad is a huge improvement for core stiffness. Like, this is actually a stiff core, and I'm impressed. Thigh rise stiffness is also huge improvement over what it was previously. Now, full disclosure, I bought these pads sight unseen. I wanted to do a rainbow set, and I had the opportunity to buy these a little early before they came out, so I did. I am very happy that I bought them, because I've been pretty happy with this set. But I am really impressed with how this core was, and I saw some things from Warrior that before they came out that they did revamp the core, and they had that option of the pro thigh stiffness, and that is something that was really important to me. So I want to give them huge credit for that, because this pad is significantly better than what it was in the past. I never thought the G3s, the G4s were really pro level pads because of how soft the core was and because of how they played. This is a pro level pad. You can see guys in the World Juniors now wearing this. I'm pretty sure they come from teams that are sponsored by Warrior, but me wearing this pad, I feel like it's a pro level pad, and I've tried every pro level pad basically on the market. That's a huge statement for me, and a huge props to Warrior for that. So now, the most improved that isn't like a goalie pad, I think CCM deserves a huge amount of credit for their Axis helmet. I love the fluid pods. I kind of overheat with my brown chest, so if those really do keep you cool, as well as like being protective. That's a huge bonus. I like that CCM kind of revamped the whole foam package in it. Before it was just like VN foam. Now it's D3O, but they have the softer foams too. Huge improvement in that mask. If I was going retail, that's something I would heavily look at. I was really impressed with what it was compared to what it was in the past. A huge upgrade from their old, I think it was GL Pro or something. So huge props for CCM for that. So the best blocker of this year, I'm not doing a catching glove because catching gloves are just simply too much personal preference. With a blocker, a lot of people say a blocker is a blocker. I totally disagree. Bauer still kills this, and I want to call this thing out for how good this thing really is and kind of the small changes that they made to it that I really like. The Bauer Ultrasonic blocker is simply the best one there is. It's way better than 2X Pro, and they still need to bring back the 1X because of the hand placement. That was still like the best mid-level hand placement or low-level hand placement blocker. They took it away. This is the best blocker there is. The sideboard is super stiff, so pucks basically can't bend that in and anything. The palm is unbelievably comfortable. Too hot. It runs too hot. I wore this outside in an outdoor rink in like 2-degree weather, and my hand was still sweating and really hot. That's never happened to me before in gloves. When I play games on this, especially back-to-back, my hand is drenched, and my hand feels so hot coming out of this. But that's a kind of a nitpick for everything else. Everything else in this is awesome. The free-floating cuff is really nice. Just the finger protection is like the best in the business. Index finger protection is basically the second best in the business besides CCM, but it's close. The rebounds are hotter than anything else. It's always really impressive using this thing, how far it pushes out rebounds. Like the weight and everything on it is just, everything about it is awesome, and Bauer deserves huge credit for continuing to make one of the best gloves on the market. The materials they use and everything is just really good on this, so they deserve huge props. This one I couldn't really fit under a category, but I wanted to give Brian's huge props because Brian's is one of those companies that really does listen to customer feedback, and they make changes based on what people are actually saying, and that's a great thing. Bauer still hasn't changed the boot binding issue that I've been calling out for 3 generations now, and they'll take forever for it. Warrior finally changed the stiffness of their core, which is a good thing, but it took a long time. Brian's basically does this overnight, and that's really impressive. Now this pad is a max core, but it has a pro stiff thigh rise, so up here is stiffer than what retail is, and that's a bit stiffer than what retail is too on the max core. But the reason why Brian's deserves credit here is because they did the max core. Brian's came out with their stiff pad, their pure stiffness pad that comes in, which is pretty impressive that it comes in 3 different flexes, but the fly flex wasn't stiff enough. Compared to other companies on the market, it wasn't as stiff as Bauer's or any of the Bauer's at the time, and the thigh would get floppy over time. My set did. My thighs basically were bent inwards when I was done with them. Now, the Pro thigh is definitely going to fix that. Now, the Max Core was made to address those concerns with people, and they listened, and they did it. I originally wasn't going to order Optic 2s because I didn't think there was a big enough change, and I reached out to Brian's, and they said, we really think you'll like these. Here's what we did specifically from this feedback, and so we think you'll really, like, this will be up your alley, and they were right. They are basically everything I wanted out of the Optic 1s. And it's really impressive, and it's that they do that, and Brian's deserves a ton of credit. Support Brian's, they really deserve it. Now, the retail blocker is another thing that they did substantial changes on based on customer feedback. I personally think they didn't go far enough, but it's so much better than what the first one was, which was basically the worst blocker I've ever used. And that's really impressive. This board stiffness is now stiffer on the Optic 2 than the Optic 1, which again was a problem for me. One, I felt shots through my Optic 1, and I'd never use it that much. And 2, the board just wasn't stiff enough. This one has a thicker plastics than retail, but the retail one is still much more impressive. The other thing was the sideboard. So that stupid flimsy piece on the sideboard was a terrible design. This one is at least totally straight and a thicker foam piece in there. It still has a bit more give than what I prefer, but this isn't an extreme like Bauer's, and I can see why people would like this. This is overall a much better design. And again, Brian's deserves credit for listening to the feedback of how bad that sidewall was and improving it substantially. This isn't an option. This is basically what I would have ordered if I ordered this custom and got a different sideboard. This isn't a custom sideboard. This is just stock, and that's much better than what they had in the past. So huge props to them there. So next I want to cover the best value of this year. And it's going to a stick just because this stick is so much better than everything else. The Bauer 3S Pro at $250 Canadian is lighter than every other stick on the market, and it's cheaper. The only stick that's lighter is their own stick, which is the Ultrasonic. Very impressive, awesome budget, like awesome value stick. For me, I'm gonna order those in the new year because I need another 26-inch stick. So I'm gonna end up ordering those, and because they're such a great value, I don't need the Ultrasonic, the difference in weight. Like I'm already really happy with the 2S Pro weight. So going to the 3S Pro will make me just as happy. So that's really, really impressive with what they did there. Bauer deserves huge credit. So now the most disappointing thing that I personally used, and it will kind of tie into the next thing, is my Ultrasonic pads. Now, it's not the pad itself. I have 2 sets now of pads, and they're both not what I ordered. This set is the stock Flex, and so they rebuilt the set, which by all means came in 5 weeks. The turnaround time, or 5 or 6 weeks, the turnaround time was amazing. And then the new pads, there's still a problem with these as well. So that's my problem, is the ordering process for this was ridiculous. This pad took 22 weeks to come. I know COVID was a thing, but I know people ordered after me, got it way before. My order got screwed up somewhere. I know a bunch of people ordered who got screwed up somewhere. The whole experience with this set has been super disappointing. A full review of this will come in the future, but because this whole thing isn't settled yet, I don't want to do a whole review and then have to revise it. So I'm just kind of teasing it here, and I won't go over any more, but these ones are also made incorrectly. So I'm kind of waiting on what the resolution is there. Now, with that said, this ties into the next thing, the most disappointing trend of 2020, which is quality control, is just like non-existent. So I have issues with all of my Bauer sets in terms of just how they're made compared to how they're ordered, which is super disappointing. Plus there's issues on the knee area with how it's sewn, which is also super disappointing. And I'll show a couple of examples of this. The other issues I've had is Warrior just totally didn't put a practice palm in my custom glove set. Then it's supposed to be included in the different palms, so the different break angles. Never got a practice palm in there either, and I have 2 extra ones of those now. And the other thing is the buckles right here were actually put on incorrectly on my Warrior pads. So the buckle down here never actually would go into it because it was used for, like, it was the wrong female end of the buckle. And this one was the right one, that one was the wrong one. Like, no one's just doing these up once to see if it works. Like, the QC in this stuff has been pretty disappointing this year, and it's kind of cost cutting. The other thing is the Access glove I used, the T on it was terrible. And again, that's like a small thing, and it's not overall going to make the gear work like that much worse or really worse. You can use it, but that shouldn't be a thing. You should be getting like perfection for what you're paying for, and you're not. And I've been overlaying like my T issues here and how it should look compared to like Lefebvre. Just really disappointing that QC has fallen so much. Now I'm going to kind of give it a bit of a pass because 2020 is a very odd year. So maybe there's some staffing issues happening in the factories, or just like things are trying to pump out just to get things done, which obviously is still a problem. But none of these things should have happened. And it's all small things that companies could easily do and easily check by just having someone making sure and checking off boxes, but they're not. But that's really disappointing and should be unacceptable to people. Finally, and last but not least, the best thing of 2020. Now, it's been obviously a terrible, terrible year. No one's going to ignore that. But the best thing to happen in 2020 was CCM breaking up with Lefebvre. The reason that this is the best thing is because now we're going to see 2 distinct lines branch off from each other, and we're going to see some interesting things coming from both. The 20.1 is pretty similar to the Axis. You can check out my comparison video up here. But the really impressive or interesting thing to me is when the 12.2s come out compared to the eFlex 5. Already we can see that those companies are going in very different directions for those. So I'm really curious to see how that plays out and kind of where the market goes. It's always good to have more competition and more options. It's really nice to be able to have that Lefebvre quality at the retail level with True. So huge props for True. I don't know if it's a purchase agreement or what, or partnership, whatever that is, to bring it to retail so more people can have access to that gear and can try it on and stuff like that. But that is what basically I was most excited for 2020, is to see these 2 companies branch out and do their own thing. We'll see different innovations, we'll see different ideas, and that's a really good thing. And hopefully it'll push the goalie pad and goalie equipment market forward. It would be really nice if Lefebvre ends up making chest protectors, that would be awesome. That's about it for this video. Hopefully it was interesting. I have reviews of this whole set coming soon, the optics coming soon. This one's not coming soon because there's still issues. I gotta figure that out. That's a tease. I know, I'm sorry, but I'll talk about it more once it's all actually figured out. There will be a player version of this as well. Interesting player gear, stuff like that. It's mostly stick related because of all the craziness. But regardless, that will be out as well. So thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully it was helpful. Remember to like this video, comment on it. If you think I missed something, let me know. Comment below. Give me a list of what your best things of the year are. And yeah, if you are making any hockey purchases and live in the United States, check out the link to Pure Hockey and Pure Goalie in the description. Clicking that link, making a purchase gives me a kickback, so it helps support the channel, so I keep making videos and making more content and testing this stuff out. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel, click the link in the description to buy me a coffee or Patreon. Anything through there comes right back into this channel for gear, so I can keep doing reviews and hopefully long-term reviews, because all these sets were purchased by me, because that's the only way I can really do a long-term review. And it's really expensive, so it would be greatly appreciated to keep the channel going. Anyways, thank you very much for watching this video, and take it easy.
You're watching HockeyReviews.ca.